This is Housebound. I'm Chris.
I'm Holly.
I'm Ashlynn.
I'm Greg.
And you're invited.
Hi, and welcome to Housebound, a podcast we made because we needed company. In it, we talk about things that are on our minds, and today we're talking about Disney and Pixar movies. So, hello, Greg, Ashlynn, Christopher. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Good.
Perfect. Excellent.
Thanks for having me.
So when I looked at this, I was like, this is going to be an easy, to the point topic, and it is not. It is so big and broad because Disney is such a huge company. And so first things first, tell me what your relationship is with movies. Are you strangers or acquaintances or friends or like lovers, like stalkers? Like what is your relationship with movies? Go.
I would probably categorize myself into a couple of those. If you could mix lovers with stalker, probably. Just because
That's how I would have categorized you as well.
Yeah, just because I really enjoy the details of the productions of films and the behind the scenes stuff. Like I'm constantly aware of things that are in production and neat things about that production. So that would be the stalker side of it. And then I guess the lover side of it would be like it's not a marriage because it hasn't gotten stale yet. I still enjoy movies. No, I'm just kidding.
Rude.
Rude.
This was not a comment on our marriage at all.
Edit that out.
I guess I like what would define the difference between marriage and lover then.
I don't know. It's a really subjective question, so you can answer however you please.
Okay, then I would just say lover because it just sounds more. I don't know. It sounds less formal.
Okay.
Yeah, for no good reason. So that's me.
Ashlynn?
I think for myself, me and movies are like your relationship with your favorite coworker. So when you're together, you get along really well and it's going smoothly, but like you're not necessarily going to text them after work or like hang out all the time. But like while you're there together, it's great. That's my relationship with movies.
Gotcha.
I love it.
For me, probably I would say that, like I would be probably either good friends or it would be more like a third wheel, kind of where the movie is just the means to hang out with other people. And so I'm not necessarily there for the movie, but it's like, it's just a social thing. And, so it just gives me an excuse to be able to hang out with friends or go on dates with Ashlynn, like that kind of thing. So, so I would say mostly third wheel would be what the movie category would be.
Excellent. I am probably good friends or like in the lover category as well with movies. I love stories, and so I really like to get lost in something that is being presented to me, even if the movie isn't great. Like, for instance, we watched Maleficent 2. The plot line in that movie is like meh, but like watching how beautiful they made all of the like fairy things, just like it was wonderful. I will watch it again because it's very pretty. Just that's the reason. That's makes me sound intelligent, but that's true. So when I was looking into this, the first thing I thought of doing was, I should look up a list of all the Disney Pixar movies. And that's when I was blown away because there are 749 Disney movies. And that's because Disney owns like Touchstone. And most recently is the newest Star Wars movie was the most recent movie on that list. So I was kind of surprised at that. I'm not sure why, because I guess COVID hit and they didn't release anything after that, but it was really interesting. So to kind of focus this in a little bit, I thought, let's scrap the whole Disney thing and let's just go with like, what do you think of when you think of Disney and Pixar movies? What's your favorite one? Like, and why?
That is a loaded question.
It's not loaded. Favorite is difficult. So what's a Disney Pixar movie that you really like?
I can quote large portions of Finding Nemo.
Mm.
But I think it was partially because that was one of the few movies that we owned growing up. So the ones that we did own, we watched like a million times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the movies, the Disney and or Disney Pixar movies, when I think of Disney movies, I instinctively navigate mentally towards the Disney Pixar movies, not just the Disney, because Disney Pixar was mostly the animation, like the 3D animation studios stuff. But prior to that, the Disney movies were either the live action ones like Mighty Ducks and stuff like that we when I was younger didn't really watch, or the Walt Disney cartoons, which are along the lines of like the classics, Sleeping Beauty, Little Mermaid, Jungle Book, Lion King, all of those. And so I think because I instinctively reach in my mind for the Disney Pixar shelf, for some reason, I think those 3D movies just grabbed me more. So we watched probably as many as the library had when I was a kid. And the ones that stick with me, the ones that I remember like the most lines from, and the ones I constantly think about when I think about Disney movies are Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, Toy Story, probably 1 and 2. And yeah, for me, there's just like a core group of like a half dozen movies that just screams original to me. And then you have all of these sequels that have come out more recently because it's been so many years and the fans grew up and wanted a sequel and Disney finally put out a sequel, things like that. But then there's movies like Cars. I couldn't give a crap about Cars. Planes, they didn't need to do that, but they did a couple times.
And then trains and automobiles.
Automobiles.
Yeah.
Birds.
That is a John Candy movie,
Yeah.
I think. And then for the live action movies, we never really watched a whole lot of the live action movies. I think it was mostly just the cartoons when I was a kid. I could be wrong. I could be misremembering, but that's what I remember. So
yeah, like for myself, I think probably like, the Disney Pixar movies are the ones that I think are definitely what I tend to enjoy the most, and what I would call the cream of the crop out of them all. But that's more just because whereas like some of the cartoons are really good and nostalgic and were really well done, honestly, like but like I probably just enjoy the viewing experience of like a 3D animated film. And so like Toy Story is awesome, and loved WALL-E and Up. So those would probably be, kind of like in the top 3 for my Disney movie experience. But like, I mean, there's definitely like some memorable stuff. So like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, more memorable in like a horrifying way and traumatic way than in a than in a necessarily good nostalgic way. So, but yeah,
that's fair. I watched. So I'm a little bit older for everybody listening than the other 3 participants in this podcast. So my experience is just slightly different. In like the Pixar movies didn't start coming out until I was like almost a teenager. Almost like 12 or almost a teenager. So the movies that I think of when I think of like original Disney movies are like The Little Mermaid and 101 Dalmatians and Lion King. Those are the 3 that like really hit me. And those are the like Little Mermaid I remember watching as a child over and over and over. And my dad would come into the room and he he would specifically time it for the time when she was singing Part of Your World. And he would come in and he would yell, "She's so selfish. She's got all this stuff and she just wants more." And I was like, no, she's not selfish. Like, all she wants is to be on the land.
Was he just trying to make like a pun?
Oh no, a shellfish. That's funny. No, he definitely was just trying to work me up, and because he knew that I would be upset about that. But yeah,
You were defending Ariel.
Yeah, Ariel, 16-year-old Ariel who gets married at the end of that movie. Like, what? 16. Gross.
Now, Toy Story 1 came out, I think, in I want to say 95. I could be wrong about that, but that would have been when you were, what, 7?
Well, I didn't look that one up, but The Lion King came out in 94. So I think Toy Story is after that. Greg kind of hit on my next comment here. What's the weirdest Disney Pixar movie for you? Greg is nervous about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and the Scary Poison Lady. But
I have a couple others, but I'll mention those.
Do
after
you?
guys
Do
are
tell.
finished. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess like for me, the couple others that definitely come to mind would be like, so the Dumbo scene where he's drunk, that terrified me as a kid.
Me too.
Yep. And also with the Little Mermaid, I distinctly remember having like nightmares of what's the tentacle lady called?
Ursula.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Definitively like going into this like dark cave, and then all of a sudden her tentacles come out and like start attacking me. And yeah, it was frightening. So 100% will watch The Little Mermaid again, but would, at the time was definitely somewhat of a nightmarish experience. So, yep.
The when you think about the Disney villains, are the female ones always scarier to you than the male ones? Because you've only had problems with female villains so far.
But which ones have like non-female villains?
The Lion King has
there's
Scar.
Jafar is kind of frightening with his whole snake experience.
Yeah, the hypnotizing.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
becoming
I
that
know.
big giant snake at the end. So,
Yeah, that's
but
scary.
it's probably. I don't think this is gonna. I don't think we're gonna be able to delve deep into like the psychological, like inherent maybe sexism that I have underneath. I don't know, but like it's just one of those things where maybe they just like typecasted women in that role, and it was less like cool evil and more like creepy evil,
I agree with that. Yeah, they definitely, when women are the villain, it's more creepy than when the men that are the villains, they definitely make them cooler, I think. Because Scar was like the bomb when I was little. He was terrible and evil, but like suave.
Yeah.
Whereas,
and even Scar in like the Lion King, like, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like even he's evil, but he's not like necessarily a creepy evil, like he's that cool, tough, like powerful evil, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. Interesting.
But don't they have a female villain in Simba's Pride? Isn't it like the matriarch?
Yeah.
Is kind of taking over, but again, they kind of saved the gender the gender swap for the villain role for the sequel. So they'd already done really good with the first one, and then they were like, well, let's try something different for the second one. That being said, is there something to be said about Lion King based on how lions work? The only sensical thing would be to have a male lion as the villain. Like, I guess you could have a female lion as the villain, but do females become alphas? Is that a thing in the cat world?
In the cat world? As far as I know, the whole pride is run by the females, and the male just sits around and impregnates. That's all they do.
Interesting.
They don't hunt or
Okay,
anything.
so So, okay, so then they were trying to like redeem the male
I don't know.
the male lion. I don't know.
I think like
I guess lions are males. I shouldn't keep saying that, but
here's the thought though. Like I think when it comes to like, I think what really freaked me out was like kind of like the more like magical, mystical side. And whenever it's a woman who's a villain exercising magic, she's a witch. Whenever it's a man exercising magic, he's like a wizard, right? So
Or like a
Wizard
sorcerer.
seems safer.
sorcerer, yeah, like that kind of thing. So, and which is a lot less creepy, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Definitely.
well, early Disney was not without its prejudices based on the time. And so that's very clearly reflected in a lot of their earlier material, to the extent of some of that material being locked away probably for forever. I kind of have a feeling that at some point they will possibly release some of this stuff and say, you know, how Warner Brothers kind of does at the beginning of those really, really old Looney Tunes VHSs, where they say they have a little warning on screen that says, you know, these cartoons were made in a time when some of the views that are present are not shared anymore, but but to completely destroy these cartoons and ignore them would be to ignore and try to rewrite part of our history. So with that in mind, here's this cartoon. Prepare for it to be probably real racist or something,
Right,
you know?
yeah.
So
Cover their butts a little bit.
But yeah, Disney does have an image to protect, so I would not be surprised if they never release some of that stuff again. But it was a product of its time. So just like anything that's produced now. So
Not that makes it okay, but gives it a reason why it was created.
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, for sure, it helps you understand a bit of the thinking that went in behind it, or the lack of consideration that went in behind some of that stuff.
Yeah, there's like a little blurb me and Ashlynn were noticing on Disney Plus. On certain movies, there'll be like a little blurb in the description, just kind of like warning you about that. So I don't know the exact wording. But yeah, so you can check that out on some of the movies or shows or whatever. So yeah,
that's really interesting.
I don't know if this was a direction that you were going to go, because I don't really have any movies of Disney that scare me or are super, super weird in my mind. But something that I did just think about that strikes me about the Disney and Disney Pixar movies from my childhood, I guess you could say, would be the era of that of when they were slowly moving into the 3D animation area. So I think that would have been like early Pixar or just pre-Pixar. And there was still a whole group of animators that weren't moving over. And they were kind of given a little bit of free reign to make kind of whatever in the meantime, just to keep themselves busy. I know that sounds a lot more lax than what was probably actually the case. But out of that era, we got things like Lilo and Stitch and Atlantis and Tarzan. And like we got these animated movies that look like they weren't animated by Disney, but they were. And so some of those movies are really iconic classic Disney movies, you know? So I think that's kind of interesting, just the way that Disney, you know, kind of course corrected how it was focusing its future products, and as a result ended up creating some really great stuff kind of by accident. So yeah, I just thought that was a neat little tidbit. But
I think I've seen George of the Jungle like 4 times as many times as I've seen Tarzan.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think me too.
I don't think we own Tarzan, but we definitely own George of the Jungle.
That's so funny. That's such a bad movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's also some very outdated cultural aspects of that film.
Really? Oh, I haven't seen it in ages.
No, there's
funny.
large portions that aren't okay anymore. And nor should they have ever been, okay?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I'll have to go back and watch it sometime.
Mm-hmm.
So Holly, what was your like original question about like the weird or
Yeah, what's the weirdest or like most uncomfortable Disney Pixar movie for you? Like, for me, it was Pinocchio or Alice in Wonderland. I didn't watch either of those ever after seeing them the first time because they were too much for little Holly. But yeah, I remember not enjoying Snow White as well because the witch was so scary. Although I don't remember saying no to watching it if like other people wanted to watch it or anything. So whereas
I've never seen Princess and the Frog, but that movie has always struck me as it's one of the newer ones, like quote unquote newer ones. It's not one of the classic Disney ones, but it's when they kind of tried to step back into that animation rather than the 3D kind of Pixar direction. But that movie has always struck me as a movie that would be really weird to watch. And that's probably been one of the reasons that I've never bothered to watch it, is because it just looks strange. Like I don't know. I don't know what it is about it. Just that movie just strikes me as like a really weird movie. So
well,
I've heard that people loved it. So
yeah, the villain in that one does voodoo. And so
well, but I mean,
depending
is
on
voodoo really any different than
any other
witchcraft
magic?
or
Yeah,
like
it's not for sure.
Maybe technically, but I'm talking about the concept of the magic. So
yeah. Here's a question. Do you guys like the new live action trend that Disney is doing, turning all of their cartoon movies into live action movies?
In the case of Beauty and the Beast, yes, I love it. Great move. In the case of almost all the rest of them, I'm like, you know what? It was fun.
Interesting.
But the Beauty and the Beast live action, I left the movie theater with my cheeks sore from smiling the whole time.
Really? That's so interesting.
I loved it.
I love hearing about old movies and old movie franchises that are being kind of rebooted or refreshed. And so I'm always very excited to see what they're going to do with them. And so I was very interested when it was announced, I can't remember when it was. I want to say 2017 or something like that. That might have been when that Cinderella movie first came out, that live action one. I think that was the
earlier.
first one.
It did
2016
maybe.
It was several years ago now for sure. And at that point there was like, I don't know the numbers, something like 17 or 23 movies that were going to be made live action. And Cinderella, I think, was one of the first. And so I watched that one. Holly and I went and saw that one in theaters. That was our first VIP theater experience with the Cinderella movie. And the movie was all right. I think it was done well, but I'm not a super big fan of the Cinderella movie in the first place. It was just a movie to go watch. So I kind of felt meh about it. And I think I've felt about the same about all the other live action remakes. They've like intrigued me, and then I've gone and seen them and been like, oh, well, okay, there's a movie, I've seen it before. It's just animated by somebody different now. So
I feel that way too. Like they were all pretty average. I don't have any real love or hate for any of them.
Yeah, I would say that I think that there are some of them that were better done than others, but like usually at the end of the day, like while it's a neat opportunity to like freshen up the story and to maybe take out some of those things that were a little insensitive before.
Right. Yeah.
And bring it up to like a new audience and introduce them to like, these are the stories like parents can introduce their kids to, like, these are the stories I grew up on as a kid, and stuff like that. So that's a neat opportunity. But I think still for the most part, it still is weird if you've grown up on the cartoons and then having that transition to a live action, whether it's like a person, like an actor coming in, or whether it's just like a 3D, animated animal representation of it, it still is strange and kind of still a little bit unnerving in a weird way, So, but yeah, so like, I think for the most part, like there's some cool, neat opportunities. I don't know if Disney has necessarily like taken up taken advantage of that and actually like try to do something like fully new. I think Beauty and the Beast, like they added like a good new song to it.
I
Was
love the new song.
that was well done. Yeah. So
haven't they added a new song to each one of the movies?
I think
though?
so.
Because there's a
I
new one in
believe so.
Aladdin. There's a new one in Cinderella wasn't a musical. No, sorry.
Jungle Book was not
New
a
one in-
musical, so they didn't. Other than
It
like
had two half songs.
two half
in it.
songs.
Yeah.
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 I think the
but
Lion King had music, didn't it?
It did, and it had a new song from Beyonce,
Right.
and it was it was a very short thing.
Mm.
And yeah, so Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. I can't remember. Dumbo wasn't a musical, so that one didn't have it in it. But
Yeah, so I think like they'll probably still keep making them because I'm assuming like we're all suckers. We've still all gone to pretty well all of these. So
Yes.
whether or not we've enjoyed them, I think we're all just going to see, is this going to be one that's actually going to do something really interesting and cool, and that I'm going to be like, yeah,
Right.
this was almost like better than the original and stuff. So I think that's always the hope. And so because of that, we'll probably still keep going and they'll probably still keep making them.
Which, Greg, is an excellent segue into the next and last thing that I have written down, which is the top 10 grossing Disney Pixar animated movies for them. The top 10 grossing Disney Pixar animated movies.
well done.
Of all time.
Of all time, which I think that there are reasons that these are the top 10, but I was surprised at some of them. So in number 10 was Finding Nemo, which
Nice.
Huh.
I
It was
I would
very
have expected.
popular.
It was very popular.
What year did that come out? Was that 2005?
I wrote them down even.
Okay, great.
2003 was Finding
2003.
Nemo. Mhm.
So it lasted. It's 17 years later, and however many is this including the fact that they now own 20th Century and Marvel and Lucasfilm and stuff like that, or no?
Well, these are only animated ones, so
Sorry.
Marvel wouldn't
Okay,
count
didn't listen to the
anyway.
question then.
So wait, before we keep going, do we
Yeah,
want to
okay.
just do like a quick guess round to guess one movie that we think will be on the top 10?
Yeah, do it. What do you think?
I definitively think Cars is going to be in the top 10 because
Interesting.
every little boy
Okay.
and their little brother loved Cars. So
Okay.
As much as I loved Incredibles, I'm hesitant to think that it's higher up on the list than Finding Nemo.
in Finding
So
Nemo, yeah.
I want us to say Incredibles, but instead I'm going to change my vote to Monsters, Inc.
Oh,
Alright.
come on. You guys are missing the obvious one. Frozen.
Oh yeah.
Well,
that would be-
okay, yeah, that's obvious.
and I think Toy Story will also be there for sure.
Wait. Is this Disney or Disney Pixar?
Disney Pixar,
Okay.
I think. No, it is Disney Pixar. I know that definitively, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are my vote.
Yeah.
Okay, those
those
are
are all
votes.
good guesses.
They are good guesses. 2 of you are wrong and 1 of you is right.
Oh.
So, okay. At number 9 is the oldest movie on the list, and that is the animated Lion King.
Oh.
That's okay.
So that
that's
one
not the
was
surprise.
1994. So that's the oldest
Huh.
movie.
Okay.
At number 8, we have Zootopia, which came out in
What?
I would not have
2016.
guessed that.
I would also not have guessed that, but
Oh,
a
guys,
lot
there's
of
so many
people
movies that they
I-
like Wall-E and Big Hero 6, like all of these
Oh,
movies that we're
yes.
just forgetting about.
Now, wait,
Yes.
is this Zootopia or is this Zootropolis? I think we need to distinguish.
What is Zootropolis?
That's the European version of the movie that came out.
What?
They
Oh.
rebranded it from Zootopia to Zootropolis.
Oh, that's
they do
interesting.
that
I didn't know
occasionally with Disney
and
movies.
obviously it worked if it's on this top 10 list. So
Mhm. So I was surprised about Zootopia. The thing is with it, though, when I was thinking about it, is that even adults, when I went home and my family were talking about movies, even the adults that I knew that didn't normally go and see these kinds of movies had seen Zootopia. And so it just hit a chord, I think, with the older, like above our generation
just
as well.
Taking kids though, so they
Well,
of course
maybe they're
gonna see
taking
it.
kids, but they're telling each other that they liked it, because I remember we actually watched that movie when it came out on video for my parents' 60th birthday outside. So then number 7 was Finding Dory, which I thought was interesting.
That is interesting.
That was a very widely anticipated sequel.
and
though.
it's
It was.
higher than Finding Nemo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it came
Well,
out
grossed
later.
also
more.
is adjusting for inflation though. So
I don't know if the list is adjusting for inflation, but in
Right.
general,
Probably
I think
not.
that the reason that the ones that are higher on these lists on this list is because the people who were watching these movies as children grew up and now have control over what they go and spend their money on. So they are going
and also
for
possibly
nostalgia.
dependence that they take with them.
Yes, yeah. And so I think that it's our generation that is making these movies specifically be higher grossing than
Mm.
anything else, because the next one is Toy Story 3.
Yeah. Okay.
And that is the third sequel
Mhm.
in a series, and that's crazy to me that it is on a top grossing list at all.
It was
Because the
good.
next one,
It was so good.
It was done really well. Like it was very highly praised when it came out. So
well, number 5
is number 2.
Toy Story 4.
Oh, what?
What? Yeah, Toy Story and Toy Story 2 are not on this list. They didn't
Are
make
you
it.
kidding me?
Yeah, just 3 and 4. So that's really crazy. Number 4, top grossing, is Incredibles 2.
Mm.
Because
Yeah, okay,
people
of course.
waited for that movie for years.
It's like 11 years later, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Number 3, Ashlynn, is Frozen.
Yes.
Okay, wait. Now top 2. Can we do some guesses now that we know what the other ones are?
Do it.
I'm a
Wally? Well, no, Wally could not have done better than
No.
Frozen.
maybe Inside Out. I'm gonna guess Inside Out.
Oh.
I
I feel like that's a good guess.
man, what other movie could they have? Like, there's The Good Dinosaur. I can't remember
No,
that
not
did
that
Well,
one.
there's like
Terribly
Frozen
that well, I don't
2
think.
and Tangled.
Tangled.
Tangled is a
Yes. And when is this list as of?
As of currently.
Okay.
It's gotta
Toy
be
So,
Story
Frozen
4 is
2?
on it, and so and Incredibles 2. That's fairly recent.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Like, my instinct wants to say then it's Frozen 2, but I don't imagine that Frozen 2 did better than Frozen.
I have another guess. I think Up would also maybe be on this.
Oh,
but I could.
I don't
excellent
know. I
movie.
think
Call.
Frozen 2 and Inside Out would have done better than
Okay.
Up.
All right,
yeah.
Okay.
Holly.
Yeah, I
reveal them.
don't have a good guess.
Okay.
I don't have a good
Okay.
guess.
So, at number 2, cut short because of the coronavirus in its earnings, is Frozen 2.
Woohoo!
Wow.
Wait,
So-
it cut short in its earnings
It
and
was
it
still in
got...
theaters when theaters were shut down, and it's still at number 2.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy. I think
Insane.
it would likely, like if it wasn't cut short, I think it would likely pull into number 1, which is so this one I think should be contested, or maybe not
Okay.
contested, but it is like iffy because it is the quote unquote live action Lion King.
No.
So it's
I
still
mean, it's
animated. Because the animals don't talk, but it's not cartoon the way
Oof.
that the other ones are cartoon.
Yikes!
So-
So not even Inside Out made it.
brutal.
Inside Out, Up.
I thought Inside Out was a
Um,
solid
yeah.
guess.
I thought
Yeah,
that was
that was a
solid
good
too.
movie. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously our watching habits differ from everybody's watching habits. And so movies that we would enjoy more are like the movies I would enjoy more are not the classic Disney movies, like classic Disney movies. And so if those movies get up higher on the list, it surprises me. But there's majority of people I feel like would disagree with my preferences for movies in the first place, let alone my preferences for which Disney movies to watch.
Yeah.
So
I did think it was interesting though, like Frozen is at number 3 and it's from 2013. So it did really well because the only
Mhm.
the two that are above it are both from 2019. And so it stayed the number one movie for them for like 7 years, which is crazy. Well, 8 years. No,
I do think
And
it's
just kidding.
finding-
6.
Finding Nemo being in 10th place after 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
bonkers.
It is bonkers. It's
But the
amazing.
animation for that movie was just gorgeous, was stunning.
Yeah.
It was beyond its
the
time.
underwater animation was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and the music for that movie, like,
So good.
like, it's great.
I think another thing that's interesting about the list is just like the number of sequels, right, that are
Mhm.
on it.
right.
And I guess it just shows that like Disney Pixar, like they've done a good job of building up their brand so that like for the most part, when they promise a sequel, you will actually enjoy it compared to
Mhm.
some other places where you're like I don't know if this is going to be worth it, you know? And so, because generally it's really tough to like do a sequel and actually have it like meet your expectations. So,
Mhm.
just because so much has been set in the first movie. And so I think just the fact that there is this commitment, I guess, to watch these sequels, and that like Toy Story 4 is even over Toy Story 3, you know,
Mhm.
shows
Yeah.
that, like they've definitely done a good job of building their image and building the idea that we're going to produce quality work generally. Like obviously maybe Cars 2 was a bit of a mishap. And Cars 3, I think, maybe
And
brought it
Planes.
back. Maybe. And Planes is definitely made for TV for sure.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. Well, even
So-
like The Lion King 2 is still one of my favorite movies. Not because it's phenomenal, but like I thought it was great when I was a
Wait,
child.
not Lion King 1.5? Like that's the
No, I
that's
hate
the
that
Prime
movie.
sequel.
No,
I
Chris
don't-
really likes that too. Ugh, so many fart jokes.
But it was fun.
Anyways, that's all I got for you. So thanks for chatting about Disney / Pixar. Like, I'm still blown away by Zootopia. That's crazy to me that movie's on that list.
That is kind of crazy.